I feel like Sacha Baron Cohen's Borat needs no introduction, but he does need an explanation, so we'll go with that and pretend it's somehow different. Borat is a stereotype. He is loud, in-your-face, obnoxious, offensive. In other words, a real-life Hitalia character. Unlike Hitalia though, Borat is actually funny, though that has surprisingly little to do with the idiosyncrasies of Borat himself. The joke, and ultimately the purpose of Borat, is that he acts as a way to expose real people and real cultures due to his disarming idiocy and cultural alienation. Real people see Borat, this idiotic, bumbling caricature, and feel free to say whatever they want without fear of judgment. This leads to things like the infamous racist frat bros, the surgeon who reassures a child that she doesn't have a Jewish nose, a crowd of MAGA cultists singing "Chop 'em up" like the Saudis do, the doctor who tells the same child that she has no choice but to deliver what he believes to be her own father's child, the hardware shop owner who earnestly answers the question,
let's say I wanted to finish Lives of 20 Gypsy, would this be enough?
Maybe the bigger one.
The bigger one.
Yeah.
Things like the fucking bizarre debutante or Borat's suicide attempt, which involves him pulling up to a synagogue to await the next mass shooting, are revealing due to them being real observations coming from the perspective of a total, albeit invented, foreigner. Through his crossing into reality, Borat becomes more than just an edgy character with one joke that brings increasingly diminished returns. He becomes a magnifying glass through which we can see that Western ignorance, indifference, arrogance, and bigotry are not only still alive, but very much thriving. All of this is because of his unique position as a fictional character thrust into the real world and forced to interact with it. You remove that crucial bit of context and the whole appeal risks falling apart. Look at that, a segue.
POV ALADEEN, the Wadi and Neil Breen. New man got an old scene. Take a life in a word every day, I'm mean. Only looking at me. Yeah, break my laws, kill my in-laws when I'm feeling bored. I don't know no shame, yeah, I'm a whore. Now come clean my sword.
The Dictator is a 2012 black comedy co-written by and starring Sacha Baron Cohen. Cohen plays the titular dictator, Admiral General ALADEEN of Wadia, a tyrannical man-child who finds himself lost in New York, on his way to a UN summit as part of a plot by his uncle to usurp him and sell off Wadia's oil fields. The key difference between this and Borat is that, whereas Borat was a character tossed into the real world and made to interact with real people, ALADEEN is a character interacting with other characters within a traditional scripted narrative, and as a result is an unintentional expose on the weaknesses of a character like Borat. Because ALADEEN is more or less entirely constrained by existing in a 100% fictional story created by the writers, there's a lot more onus on him to be engaging in and of himself than there is for Borat. And because of this, their one-note nature is far less insulated, since the film can't just farm entertainment by throwing him into a crowd and filming what happens. No, they actually have to write characters for him to bounce off of and interact with, and oh boy, he sure does bounce. See, ALADEEN can't expose or comment on anything because he isn't interacting with real people, he is interacting with other characters who are just as much a caricature as he is, only performed more subtly. Now I'm sure you're thinking, well, why can't they just write the characters in such a way that they can still comment on and explore themes? Even Borat does that. Practically every other story does that. Yeah. Why don't they? The simple, inescapable flaw of The Dictator is that, despite only being 12 years old, is one of the most dated films I have ever seen in my life. A massive chunk of the film can pretty much be summed up as staring at this meme for an hour and 20 minutes while a bad episode of South Park plays in the background. In particular, every single joke with the deuteragonist Zoe is just saying random words in an order that nobody speaks in so they can meet the funny woke word count, or just calling offensive things offensive, the joke being that they're offensive and someone is calling them offensive.
We are a vegan, feminist, nonprofit cooperative operating within an anti-racist, anti-oppressive framework for people of all or no genders.
Get me clothes, little man.
Oh, you know what? There's some in the earthquake relief box in the lesbian bathroom, right there.
Oh, I hope that didn't come off as like a cultural stereotype because I'm like the furthest thing from a racist. Pretty much haven't had a white boyfriend since high school.
Okay, that one was kind of funny. And before you go typing in the comments, oh, is the little woke cuck shy boy triggered? Know that I used to ride with this crowd. I would have been so down for this film back when I was an edgy, sad, nihilistic 15-year-old. And I'm not talking about the nothing matters, so everything matters nihilist. No, I'm talking Heath Ledger Joker, nothing matters, so why even get out of bed nihilist. That sad bitch would have loved this film so much, but then I grew up and realized that this kind of person doesn't even exist outside of the depraved imaginations of terminally online weirdos. Yeah, there's plenty of self-loathing white liberals out there. Are they silly and kind of fun to roll your eyes at? Of course, but to devote what feels like 2/3 of the film on one fucking joke at the expense of someone who doesn't even feel like a parody of a real person? How could I possibly take offense from something so bland, surface level and boring? The only real thing that the film has to say is that industrialized, rich nations in the global north exploit developing ones by using democracy and globalization not as genuine tools to improve people's lives and connect them better with the international community, but simply to expand their own spheres of influence and exploit whatever resources happen to be lying there. Meanwhile, any actual reforms and moves to make people's lives better are, if you're lucky, ill thought out tokenisms designed to just kinda give the veneer of progress without actually improving material conditions. Even though these jokes are still tinged with the tone of a 14-year-old boy who thinks the Chinese SpongeBob parody is the height of comedy, there's at least like something there, at least compared to Zoe, who is basically the writers just jangling keys in front of the audience, expecting them to laugh because they said the right buzzword. Beyond this, the only jokes left are the shock humor, the oh my god, I can't believe they went there jokes, and while they sometimes do strike silver, these have diminishing returns the longer and longer the film goes on, since again, it's just one joke over and over again. It also doesn't help that jokes have a tendency to get dragged out to the heat death and back. Like yeah, Ladis washroom is very funny, not so much when you repeat it 3 times in the span of 30 seconds. What else is there to say about this thing? I like the joke where the cow ALADEEN had executed ends up being served at the Resistance restaurant as if it's an old enemy. The scene where he steals a dead black man's head is funny, even though it also reveals that ALADEEN is, certified lover boy. Can you tell I'm getting bored writing this? TLDR, the Dictator is the poster child of lazy dark humor. Grey humor. No, that sucks. Something that thinks it can just thoughtlessly spew out crude and offensive buzzwords and the audience will clap like seals. Any jokes that are genuinely layered, or even just funny in a stupid, simple or shocking way, are either spread too far out to save the film, or are run into the ground for so long that any goodwill they might have generated gets killed along with them. Now I'm sure some of you might be asking, well Kai, if you hated the film so much, why are you even talking about it? And that's where you're wrong, because I didn't write this video to talk about the Dictator.
Right, so you went into a shop with your hands on your face like that. So why has she got her hands on her face, Fess? She's got a beard.
4 Lions is a 2010 black comedy and satire film directed and written by Chris Morris and starring Riz Ahmed. Ahmed plays Omar, the leader of an Al-Qaeda terrorist cell in Sheffield, as they attempt to leave their mark on history by playing their role in the fight against the West. This attempt being somewhat hampered by the fact that they're all absolute idiots. Just based off that short description, you might be asking yourself, what's different about this film compared to The Dictator? A lot. That's the answer. From the style of the comedy, to the nature of the jokes, to the pacing, to actually exploring its themes and messages, Four Lions puts in the fucking work to not only be a film you can laugh at, but also one you will think about for longer than 5 seconds after the credits roll. Talking about those laughs, the first, most simple but effective technique that Four Lions uses when telling its jokes is actually writing jokes. Look, I understand that to a degree, this whole video is going to be subjective. Some people just like more over-the-top, flamboyant humour like The Dictator, compared to the drier, more cringe-focused comedy of Four Lions. That is fine, and also not what I am talking about. If I had to describe it, the comedy of Four Lions is organic. The jokes that occur within the film occur the same way good jokes happen in the real world. Whether it's people just reacting to things happening around them, or the characters are all together riffing off of each other, there wasn't a single gag that took me out, that broke the spell. In other words, they are congruent with each other. The film doesn't just have jokes inserted into it like it's being stopped. The jokes are just organically part of the film. That doesn't mean they have to be reserved or highbrow or even realistic. If that was all I cared about, then trust me, I would have stopped watching anime a long time ago.
Ohayou, my Oni-chan.
Although, maybe I should still do that. What I care about is when a film grinds to a complete stop to tell one mediocre joke and then slowly starts moving again. One is not naturally arising from the other. They feel like two separate things forced into a tiny room and are conserving air by only breathing one at a time. It's like a sitcom with the laugh track removed. Every unnecessary pause while it stares you in the face expectantly, daring you, waiting for you to laugh, feels so much bigger.
Well, if that's the case, Penny will have to get satellite TV and maybe once a week want to vacuum through this place.
Even worse, it takes me out of the film, resumes my disbelief, and makes it harder to actually engage with the film, to earnestly give it my full attention and investment. Because of this, the film can never be more than surface level, never be more than just a thing I am watching, which is bad in any case, but especially when it comes to the second, far more important distinction between these two films, and that is using dark humour as a way to make genuine commentary and observations. The main focus of Four Lions is obviously Islamic terrorism, and just me saying that should already have you picturing some very crass, easy jokes that would fit right at home with a film like ALADEEN, something the film actually parodies.
What? Just because I'm Muslim, you thought it was real?
Four Lions, however, avoids this trap by, as I mentioned, not only ditching cheap laughs and actually writing natural, character-driven jokes, but by using those jokes to explore themes and make a point. Four Lions isn't just a film about a gang of incompetent terrorists being stupid. It's about extremism in general, how people find themselves falling into it, how vulnerable people are often manipulated into staying when they start questioning things, how just weird and inconsistent all of it is, and how ultimately nobody really knows what all of this is for. There are two characters in particular I want to single out, Waj, played by Kayvan Novak, and Barry, aka Azim Al-Brittani. Azim Al-Brittani. aka Azim Al-Brittani, played by Nigel Lindsay. Waj is Omar's cousin, and out of everyone, he seems the least convinced of what they're doing. Multiple times throughout the film, he confides in Omar that he has doubts about what they're doing, that he, shocker, thinks killing people might be bad. Unfortunately for Waj, he's far from the brightest. Given when this was written, I doubt much genuine care and thought was put into it, but he most definitely has some kind of developmental disorder, which leaves him extremely open to manipulation from Omar, who, given the trust Waj puts in him and the fact we don't really see much in the way of other family members, may be some kind of caretaker, or at the very least is an extremely significant pillar of support for him. Significant enough that Waj trusts him enough to betray his own morals, just because it's what Omar says. I feel like Waj is meant to represent the predatory nature of how groups like this handle recruiting, specifically targeting the most vulnerable in society, the people in most need of help, who either don't have the ability to fully understand what they're signing up for, or are just so desperate, so wanting for support, belonging, solutions, answers, whatever, that they'll take anything that sounds like it might possibly be the fix. It's a horrible thing, watching this man's own blood gaslight him into doubting his own beliefs, abandoning his own convictions. And it's awful knowing that this very situation is happening right now across the world. Vulnerable people, victims of a cruel and random world, in need of genuine help, holding out their hand, only for it to be taken by people whose only care is furthering their own agendas. Barry is undoubtedly one of those people. Mr. Al-Brittani, unlike the other main characters, is a convert, and perhaps because of that is by far the most, we'll call him zealous of the bunch. To the point that even among literal terrorists, he's a fucking weirdo.
You know you put peanut under your knob, man.
Far from being the ideal apostle, people like Barry are more like pretentious hipsters than anything else. People who keep inventing new and obscure goalposts and guidelines so that they can feel more pure, more ideal than everyone else, a fact which they can then lord over all those other pagans. It's not about being a genuinely better, more faithful Muslim, it's just feeling superior to everyone else. You know this man's a poser when he wants to go to Pakistan and can't even speak Urdu.
Okay, बंदर के टट्टे तेरी उर्दू कैसी है? नदी की घाट?
I feel like a great contrast to all this is Ahmed, Omar's brother, who is probably the most stereotypically Muslim you could possibly imagine. He's got the dress down pat, he holds prayer meetings, he refuses to set foot in the same room as his sister-in-law, he nearly throws up at the sight of his nephew playing with a water pistol. Not counting weird-ass Barry, who I'm not even sure is human to be honest, he is probably the most fundamentalist Muslim in the film, and he is also the one who goes to Omar telling him that what he's planning is wrong and that he should actually talk to other Muslims beyond the stooges he's surrounded himself with. Ahmed serves two purposes beyond just the humorous subversion that the hilariously strict, pious Muslim is the one who isn't planning to bomb a boot store. One, he shows that real, proper, devout Muslims who study the text and live the life aren't the ones running off to camps in Pakistan to blow up mountains. And two, he shows that most people outside of Islam have no idea what they're looking for when it comes to Islamic extremism, and this includes literal governments. As Omar and his gang get ready to blow up the London Marathon, MI5 realise something is going down and gets the jump on them by preemptively raiding them. And by them, I am obviously referring to Ahmed, who isn't the terrorist, but because he's more traditionally Muslim than Omar in his behaviour, well, obviously he's the more extreme one. And look at that, he had a water pistol on him. If that ain't intent to kill, I don't know what is. Add to all that the horrendous miscommunication amongst the police, and not only is an easily preventable attack allowed to go ahead, there will be nothing learnt from it because they got the wrong fucking guy. Side note, because I know some backwater edgelord is gonna be saying, oh, you only like this film because you ain't Muslim, so it doesn't trigger you when you get made fun of. Mate, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm from London. You best believe I got skin in this game. Half the people I grew up around was Muslim, half my teachers was Muslim, I got family who's Muslim, wallahi my college had wudu stations. If there was any offence to be taken from this film, I could have taken it. Four Lions is a funny film. Hilarious, even. The Dictator would be lucky to get a out of me every like 10 minutes or so. Four Lions had me holding back laughter and covering my eyes every couple of minutes. But if Four Lions was just more funny than The Dictator, then this video would be like half the length it already is, if it even existed in the first place. I'm making this video for the same reason I make any video. Four Lions made me think. It made me think about things I hadn't before. It challenged my preconceived notions about how a terrorist had to act. It stayed with me hours, days, months after my initial viewing, and it did all of that not in spite of it being black comedy, but because it is black comedy. Dark humour is funny, cringe humour is funny, and when done properly, even offensive humour can be funny. Useful, I might even say. You just gotta, you know, put in the effort, actually think about what it is you're saying with the joke, and please make them as offensive as you want, but for the love of God, please make new ones.
We are a vegan feminist nonprofit cooperative operating within an anti-racist, anti-oppressive framework for people of all or no genders.
Actually, that is one of my pronouns. Also they, them, and me. To re-educate homophobic, transphobic, racist.
My pronouns are he, him, and Z. I'm a heteronormative, cisgendered white male.
I get it, words are funny, but there's only so many of them. Just take a minute, put your heads together. I'm sure you'll come up with something great. Yo, I got music. Yellow Bile, the soundtrack containing all the original music in this video, is out now. Find the link to it in the description below or at the video end card. If you were pledged to my Patreon, like my tier 3 patron Michael Coolwood, you could have heard a few of these songs in advance though, as well as a bunch of other stuff like behind the scenes updates, access to videos a day in advance, and of course, credits at the end of every video. A huge thank you to all my patrons, including the aforementioned Michael Coolwood. If you'd like to join him, links in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.